Hello students, welcome to my channel Social Science with Shilpa. So in today's lesson, we are going to talk about the features of the Indian Constitution. Since this module is specifically for grade 8 or the children below of that grade level, so I have not covered much details of all the features. So this is a basic introduction of the features of the Indian Constitution. So let's begin with it. So first of all, let us see the features of the Indian Constitution. First is the federalism, second, parliamentary form of government, then next, separation of the powers, fourth, secularism, and fifth, fundamental rights and duties. So in today's module, we are going to cover federalism, parliamentary form of government, separation of powers, and secularism. We are not going to talk about fundamental rights and duties. I will prepare a separate module since it's a very important aspect of our life, being citizen of a country. So I have a separate module for fundamental rights and duties. We will only briefly discuss the names of the fundamental rights and duties, but we will not discuss them in detail in this module. Okay, so let's begin. So the first feature, that is federalism. Federalism is the principle of the Constitution in which the power to make law rests with two or more levels. But since in our country, the lawmaking power rests with central government and the state government. And these powers, both the central and state government, they get from the Constitution. As we have discussed in our previous module, that the Constitution describes the powers and functions of the government. So why was it mentioned there? That because it is what a government can do, what it cannot do, all those things, all those powers are mentioned in the Constitution. So any level of the government cannot go beyond their power, which is mentioned in the Constitution. Then next, there are three lists which deals with powers and functions of each level. So what are those three lists? We are going to discuss now. So the first list is the union list. So it contains all those subjects which pertain to the matter related to the country as a whole. So the central government deals with such topics, such list. So it's a union list. Next we have the state list, which talks about or which deals with the matter related to a particular state. So example, highway and police. There is one list which is shared by both central and the state government. That's a concurrent list. It deals with the issues which are of concern to both nation and the state. So I repeat, there are three lists. One is with the central government. Second is the state government with the state government. And third is with both of them, which they share. So union list pertains to the matter related to the country as a whole. State list contains or deals with the matter related to a particular state. And concurrent, the issues which are of concern of both the state government and the central government. So in the next slide, we will see some subjects which are the part of these three lists. Like in the central list, we can very well see these laws apply to whole country. For example, law relating to defense, money, banking, telephone, postal system, etc. And 97 subjects are there in central list. Second, we have the state list, which deals with the matter related to construction of roads, then national other roads other than national highways, then the agriculture, irrigation, police, healthcare. In total, it consists of 62 subjects. The third list, on which both the government can make law, both parliament and state legislative assembly can make law. They are like education, law related to labor, electricity, industries, etc. there are 47 subjects in total under concurrent list. So when both the parliament and state legislative assembly, they make law on a particular subject in the concurrent list, and if their laws, what they have made, they contradict each other, then we know the parliament's decision will be taken over. That is why it is also called that India is a quasi-federal. Quasi-federal means where central government is supreme or is above the state power. So although state has the power to make law, but if central government and state government both make law and they contradict, then the law made by the parliament is considered and is the law over the state legislative assemblies. Moving to the next feature of the Indian Constitution, that is the parliamentary form of government. We all know by this time that we all the adults of our country enjoy the right to vote, to choose their representatives, because universal adult franchise is the right which entitle every adult citizen to choose their representative. In class 6, if you remember, we have talked about the democratic system. So our country is a representative democracy, or we can say indirect democracy, where we people cannot directly participate in the work of the government, but yes, through elections, we indirectly participate in the functioning of the country. So the leaders or the people or the members whom we elect, they form the parliament and they make decisions for our country. They make decisions for the welfare of the people, welfare of the citizens, for the development of the nation. So that is why our government is a parliamentary form of government. Next, children, separation of power. Like we have organs in our body, similarly, our country also have 3 organs, which are as follows: legislature, executive, and judiciary. Like functions of the organs of our body have their separate function. They don't interfere into each other's role, each other's function, but yes, they help in managing the other. They keep a check on the other organ. Is it working properly or not? But they all have their separate identity. They all function individually. Similarly, these 3 organs also, they have their own separate powers, and they keep a check on each other, that no organ may misuse their powers. And moreover, by having this check on each other, it creates a balance between all the 3 organs, so that no organ may overpower the other. One organ keep a checks on the other, so that in total, they all work towards the betterment of the nation and for the welfare of the people. So now let's study about these 3 organs and their functions. So the first organ is the legislature, what we call as the parliament or the state legislative assemblies or state legislature. So legislature, as the word implies, law making. A law making organ of the country is called legislature. So legislature is a group of elected representatives. Elected why? Because we people, citizens, have elected them. They are our representatives. And what is their work is? To frame laws on behalf of the people. That's what I told you in the previous slide, that our country is an indirect democracy. Here, we don't directly participate in the work in the government, but yes, we participate in the work in the government through our representatives whom we have elected in the elections. The second organ, executive, who executes, who implements the law. So a law is made in legislature and then the implementation work is done by the executive. Then the third organ is judiciary. Now judiciary, justice giving organ, the organ that protects the interest of the people, the organ that prevents the violation of the law. So we have a proper system of courts in our country. We have district courts, then we have high courts, and we have Supreme Court. All these courts protect the interests of the people. They ensure that everyone enjoys their fundamental right. And moreover, we have the right to approach the court if there is any violation of law, or if anyone feels that his or her fundamental rights are being taken away. Now, moving to the next feature of the Indian Constitution, that is secularism. So, in secularism, our country is a secular nation. Here, the state and the religion are separate. Means the government never interferes in the religion or religious practices. But yes, dear children, keep one thing in mind. State will intervene only in those cases where the government feels that there is exploitation of a one particular group by another group, or one group is dominating or is claiming their superiority over the minority group. So in those cases, the government intervenes in the religion also. Otherwise, there's a policy of non-interference. Next, we have a secular country does not support any religion and treats all religions alike. It means in a secular country, every religion is treated equally, and all the people belong to different religion, they live in peace, harmony, and unity, as it is very well depicted through this picture. You can see the symbol of peace and all the religions living in harmony. So this is what is the main motive of secularism. So the word secular was included in the Indian Constitution through an amendment which was done in the year 1976. So please remember this year. It's a very important amendment to remember, that when was secularism added in the Constitution? It was in the by the amendment in the year 1976. So if someone asks you what do you mean by secularism, so remember this definition of secularism. As per the Indian Constitution, people are free to practice and propagate any religion of their choice. So what does it mean? What does the Indian Constitution guarantees to all its citizens? That people are free to practice. Means everyone are free to practice any religion they want. They can propagate, they can spread that religion, or perform the religious rituals, or celebrate their festivals. So no one can stop them performing any particular religion. Now, as I told you in the beginning only, I'll only touch the introduction of the fundamental rights, but we'll go in detail about rights and duties in a new module. So fundamental rights are defined as the basic human rights of all citizens. So the fundamental rights which every citizen is entitled to, which no one can take from that particular person. Those are the fundamental rights. Constitution guarantees certain rights. So what are these rights and what do they guarantee? They guarantee the well-being of the people. They guarantee the welfare of the people. They guarantee to promote the ideals of equality, that all would be treated equally. All may have the right to speak, right, freedom of expression, liberty. They are free to do what they want to do, until it is not within the boundaries, like not harming the unity and harmony of the nation. Then justice means equal justice for everyone. Everyone is equal before law. They may get justice whenever they want to. Then next we have the last thing that we need to remember, that the fundamental rights are referred to as the conscience of the Indian Constitution. So just a quick recap, a quick look at the fundamental rights which are given to us by our Indian Constitution: the right to equality, right to freedom, right against exploitation, right to freedom of religion, cultural and educational rights, and right to constitutional remedy. So these are 6 fundamental rights which are provided to us by our Constitution. So today's work is revise the topic taught, and 4 questions we have done in the previous modules. 2 more questions I'm giving you today. Discuss the 3 salient features of the Indian Constitution and write about the fundamental rights and duties. So this answer, you may not be able to write it completely, but yes, in the next module, I will explain in detail about the fundamental rights and duties. Okay, next, I've given some exercises here, so try to solve them. They are very easy. Just read the clues and answer it. A picture-based question. I hope you all have guessed by now that who is this famous personality. So answer the questions given below the picture. Thanks for watching. Do share, like and subscribe my channel, Social Science with Shilpa. And don't forget to give your valuable suggestions, comments and feedback. Thank you so much, children. God bless you all.